Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to see so many of you in the room. There's so many faces who have become well known over email that are now faces in real life. So really welcome to all our partners and colleagues and ministries and team members that have joined for today. So before we kick off, very quickly, my name is Sophia Koziakis and I'm the DHIS2 Education Project Manager based here at the University of Oslo, Department of Informatics. Before we kick off for today, we just wanted to take a big warm welcome and let you know that the Global Partnership for Education, Knowledge and Innovation Exchange, EMAP community, that is the community of Europe, Middle East, North Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, are live streaming the events on education today. So welcome to the online community. I hope you can see us. I don't know if there's a camera. Yeah, this is the one. Hello to everyone. Really welcome. We will be fielding questions from you throughout the session, so please feel free to send your questions in and we'll make sure that you're always part of the team, even though you can't be here with us today. So really warm welcome and thank you to the KICS EMAP community for joining us. So I'm going to pass it over to Knut before we introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. My name is Knut Staring. I'm working with Sophia together with the University of Oslo branch of the network that work on education. And we are very pleased, as Sophia said, to have everyone here today. We're going to dive into some very exciting presentations now and also in the session after the coffee break. But I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we're not going to present in great detail today, but that you will be hearing more from us on later. And one of the interesting things that has happened this year is that we have established a partnership, an MOU with something called the SPIX Foundation. And we can go into a lot more detail, but the main thing takeaway is there's something called the X API, which is basically more or less becoming the key standard for EdTech in the EdTech world. As you know, DHIS2 is not really focusing on, providing software for teachers to help students learn math or history, but there are a lot of other providers, a lot of other initiatives that do that. But we want to be able to connect to that because we think that DHIS2 as a national system both will want to have some of the outcomes from those types of systems or apps or whatever you have, as well as be able to form a backbone and a sort of registry of key information that is needed for those kinds of efforts. So the XAPI is a way for this whole new emergent industry to converge. And that's why it's important for us to work on that. And Alfredo and his team in DHIS is hiding back on the back there. But he is the CTO of DHIS. They are leading this work now on XAPI. Another thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to hear about the exciting work in Nigeria. But there is one state in Nigeria that is presented here by something called the Data Science Nigeria. I think we may have a representative here. So what is really interesting about the Edo state in Nigeria is that they're using DHIS2 not just for health, not even just for education, but across the board for, I think, like more than 20 ministries for all their data. So basically, they're using DHIS2 as a state system for information across all sectors. So that's hugely interesting. It reminds me a little bit of what Uganda is doing on the National Development Plan, which is also across all sectors. But this is even, I think, more detailed. Then I wanted to acknowledge that we have our other session with Education Above All, with the Aga Khan Foundation, with Save the Children, Waliku, And then I hope you all come back for that session, which is in a different auditorium, auditorium 2, but it's only a few meters from here. And I wanted to mention that African Union iPad is also going to be present at this conference. We've had some very nice collaborations with them since last year, especially in Francophone countries. Specifically, there's been field visits to both Chad and more recently to the Central African Republic. So that's also hugely interesting and important for us. Then I'll hand it back to this session, which is Sophia.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Knut. I think there's so much going on. We're moving and shaking. So thank you so much for that update. And as mentioned, we have some more sessions later today at 3 o'clock in Auditorium 2. So there'll be another really, really good session to look out for. So we're getting into our session for today. We have a lovely group of different colleagues who have come from far and wide to be able to present with us today. My head is quite small. Try to squeeze. There it is behind my ears. Okay. So I'd like to just introduce all those colleagues that will be presenting. We're going to go just present everyone now, and then they will come up and present themselves again. So just a big warm welcome to Aluka Tirpasif, who's the director from HISP Nigeria, taking on a huge journey now, starting in 12 states and soon expanding. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
And then we will cross over to UNESCO IIEP, to Am Gagnon. Thank you so much again for being here. Am is the senior program specialist who's leading the data and evidence cluster of the technical cooperation team at UNESCO IIEP. So there's a lot to learn as the DHIS community from the work IIEP does on education planning and EMIS. Then we are very impressed that we were able to make sure that the Ministry of Education from Sri Lanka has joined us. We are so appreciative that you've come such a long way. We have Ms. Dakshina, who's the director of the data management unit, and Dr. Pramil, who will be telling us a lot about a very exciting program with the school meal program, again, a cross-sector collaboration. And then to finalize, we're really sorry not to have Mr. Dameto from the Ministry of Education, Togo, with us today. Visa is always a problem, even though we start early. So we apologize for that, but we're very happy, Jerry, that you're working so closely with the ministry, Jerry Aziawa, Implementation Director, and he works with HISP West and Central Africa. So if any of your projects are looking at West and Central Africa, Jerry is your man. So if I can ask, please, for Mr. Aluka to come join us, and I will get the presentations ready.
My head is good.
Mine.
Okay, so good afternoon. As said, my name is Aluka from HISP Nigeria, and I'll be taking this presentation. So this is a journey that we started 7 months ago. Yeah, and it was because UNICEF saw the needs, and then they came. We had that level of discussion. But why was it? It was because the initiative was to bring about what was in the education sector and see how data is being managed. Because part of it has been, a lot of systems have been tried in Nigeria with a view of seeing how best they can get around. But at some point in time, data is not always there. States are running what they want to do, and so on and so forth. So by looking at those fragmented systems, there was the need to properly coordinate things together and then have a platform that will be able to help the education sector manage most of the activities that they had. And that was when the need for the DHIS came in. And it was purely for 12 northern states 8. It started with 8 from the UNICEF side, and then states started coming in to say, hey, we would like to be part of it. And so we now went about, and UNICEF added 4 additional states, making it a total of 12 for today. So we have about 6 in the northern states and then 1 in the east, just to test, in Nigeria, when you are testing a product, you have to go around the whole country so that there's that level of acceptability, because you need to learn what is happening from the other sectors as well. So we have these 12 states in the north. Who are the key implementers? The guys on ground have been the HIS Nigeria and working closely with HIS Uganda, because they've been implementing some of these activities, and we thought it wise to work closely with them to be able to also understand the system. But here comes UIO sitting in the middle, trying to also see how things are running. And then, as Sophia mentioned and note, they've been part of this journey from the onset, and up to now. Now, UNICEF is the funder, trying to provide all the funds for this for now. And we are happy with that. What's the strategy that we try to use? Going from what we have seen from other countries, we have the web-enabled, the mobile EMIS platform, and then we have both the off and the online data collection modes. And we've customized about 6 or 7 data sets that are very big, and the system is up and running. The platform is designed to harmonize data from the annual school census. That has been the first thing that the country has always looked at for. So it is an annual event that every year they go back, try to pull data from all that has happened, the number of entrants, what are the activities within the school, and then have it into sometime in an Excel format, and then see how they are able to go out and then run some of those analysis. So when the DHIS came on board, they were very happy, and much of what we will see what some of the people have said about it. So it's both for non-formal education, like the Quranic education. We have all those tools customized within the system. So it's providing like a comprehensive education landscape for Nigeria. And how did we go about learning from the health sector? We started with development of a national core team, where we have people trained at the national level, and then they are able to use that structure to be able to cascade down, because that's what we used in health at some point in time to be able to cover the whole country. And as you all know, Nigeria is a very big country. I used to say it is about 6 countries in one, because we're into 6 geopolitical zones, but for each of those zones, it's very big. So we had put in that core team at the national level. Then you have all the states and the local education officers being trained to be able to cascade this information, this process down. And this has helped a lot in getting these master's trainers on board. And today we've done the last state, and they are busy collecting data in these 12 states. So what are the early results? We've seen that over 55 education sector staff from the 12 states have been trained as core system administrators, because they were already running certain systems that were on ground. We needed to bring them on board and to give them how the DHIS is being run, and then how things are done. And we have about 321 states and LGA level EMIS officers trained to support cascade training to the schools. So the structure is national, states, and then you have the local government, then you have the schools. We have over 55,000 schools enrolled into the DHIS with ongoing school level training already in these 12 states. So if you begin to do your mathematics and then go forward and see what is going to happen in the coming years, you your answer is as good as mine. If in 12 states we have 55,000 schools already, then you can imagine when we are in 36 plus FCT, the number of schools that we have. So in the system, we have done some, we have customized some dashboards and some very useful, user-friendly analytics that are already running. So some of these codes that you see, because the people who are coming in new, they also had some things to say that we have never come across to a perfect as well as today with the use of the platform. So one of the MI officers, one of the EMIS officers was just giving his own insight on what he saw and what the DHIS could do for the country. For his state, this is from Zamfara State, one of those northern states that I showed you. Same thing with somebody from Adamawa, are some of the things that they've said. Now, what next? There is a discussion of scaling up this information system across the 36 plus FCT, and that's a huge task. I want to say that in 12 states, we have this number of schools. If you look at the country, we have about 36 plus FCT, that's 37 states. And then we have 774 local governments, that's the sub-district level. And we want to scale up. So, the school, the number of schools at least per state will be well, but we are going to go into some thousands of schools, not hundreds. So that's the plan. And the good thing is that the government, together with UNICEF, has been in talking terms to see how this level of scale up is going to come. And why is that happening? I think part of the learning curve has been the current minister was a junior minister in the Ministry of Health. So he saw what the DHIS was doing in terms of the health data that was there. And that when he came into education, he wanted to replicate the same thing. And then he's saying that, okay, we want to see how we go for student registry across the whole country. That's a huge task. I think it's good for us that we are here. We will learn from some of the countries. Gambia has been in it, and then they will tell us more about some of these issues that we have. So for us, this is where we are as a country, and we are hopeful that with some of the learnings that we're going to get out of some of these discussions, we'll be able to have a fruitful implementation. Thank you.
Just a quick tip for everyone, for all sessions. These, as you may have noticed, these chairs, they make a horrible noise when you stand up, if you're not careful. So be aware when you stand.
Yeah, okay. Okay, hello everyone. Hello to everyone online. Hello us in the kids EMAP hub. Nice to see you all. You can just chat who you are, where you're from. I'm be curious to see the record after. Hello everyone. Thanks to the DHIS2 team for inviting me. It's always nice to be in Oslo and to see all the changes in this exciting platform. I come here with kind of taking a step back to give an overall picture of not only how we work with different member states at IIP. So IIP is the UNESCO Office for Planning and Management of Education Systems. I lead a team working on data and evidence. Oops, I'll start my timer. And so yeah, I'm here to share a bit like how we engage with different member states, but also to share some of my more personal insights. So I think I think my colleagues will agree, but let me just say that some of this presentation is really a personal reflection on how we work with EMIS these days. I thought I would start with the definition, the way that the definition that we use at IIP. So an EMIS, it would be the coordinated network of individuals, organizations, institutions, technologies, processes, rules, regulations, everything basically that is working together in a cohesive way to produce fit for purpose quality data that we need to make decisions in our systems, to operate the education system, to deliver education services, and so forth. Now, like in every good definition, there's like a footnote with a lot of fine prints. So I will give this to Sophia so that everyone can have access afterwards. But the idea for us is to have a definition that is complete enough so that it can really frame the different actions of the different actors, and so that not only from a ministry standpoint, from central level to the local levels, but also from this community that we are also representing today, the development partners, the financial partners, the NGOs, and so forth, so that we can all see where we fit, where we can contribute, and how to to improve data quality and ultimately learning for the children in this world. So there are several ways to visualize the recent changes and the recent trends in education and information systems. I think we kind of went from a way, like we were kind of enumerating, the components of the education system to plan better. Then we integrated the databases to manage the system better. And now we're working a lot on interoperability, right? To understand also how the systems work. And I guess the next step is modeling, right? Modeling the different data environments, context, evidence that we have to start predicting also the out of schools, the learning achievements, and so forth. So this is kind of a chart that you will see in a tool that will come out very soon that I will introduce in a minute, where there is of course time that has influenced the data production processes, but also the type of data that we're collecting and how we use it. And so what I want just to symbolize with this chart with a lot of fine prints also, as you see, is that we need now education management information system that allow for navigating from the very local learner level or teacher level data points to the more global aggregated monitoring of SDGs, monitoring national policies, how do we manage the standards and the norms and so forth. And so that back and forth, I think, is essential nowadays. And this is actually one of the perhaps first trend that I observe and I wanted to share with you is this idea that from perhaps now more than ever, we really need to connect the technology that we use, the data that we produce with the policies, the norms, the standards. And this connection, we've been trying to make it happen over the last decades, of course, but I think now it's more crucial than ever. Perhaps I can follow on these trends that I've been noting over the last years is perhaps one on how the interoperability of the data is now going a lot beyond the education sector. We saw it within the education sector, so looking at the infrastructure equipment with school level staff, non-teaching staff, students, but also now we saw it with Kristen earlier with climate data. We work a lot at IIP also with geospatial data, but we have a lot of focus also on health and well-being services, on teaching materials. And so all of this together, this is really the nexus of the data system game, I would say right now. And I'm super happy to see changes like we saw this morning to really take advantage of the wealth of data that we use. And I think that the more granular the data becomes, and I think now we can also add, data on attendance, access to different services. The more granular is the data, the more urgent it really becomes to focus on issues as confidentiality, privacy, data ethics. How do we store data? How do we use data? How do we disseminate it? And I think if we want to continue going in that direction with our data systems and data collections, we really need to address those things. It's not an easy discussion to have. It has a lot of ramification with government open data policies and so forth. The different frameworks that they have, but it's crucial that we address this point. We will perhaps talk about it a bit later in the day or tomorrow, but just as the way that our education systems change, our data system change and follow through, but I think we also need to focus on the capacity of all actors to follow also. Not only the staff at central level in the ministry, but also at all administrative areas and even the teachers and the principals in the classroom so that everyone can start reporting. Using AI and machine learning is really nice, really cool, super trendy. But if no one knows how to kind of produce the data that feeds into these models, I'm afraid it's useless. Of course, there are some organizations, or let's say companies, that will know how to really leverage the power of this data and using these models, but those are not necessarily the ones that we want to share our data with because of confidentiality, privacy, and data ethics, right? And I think discussing with many of you from governments, from different NGOs, I see that from a data software perspective, also the landscape is a bit changing. In just a few, I mean, well, I'm old enough to say 15 years ago. Yeah, some time ago, there were a lot of players, a lot of companies, a lot of big and small packages that were used in many different contexts. There were individual consultants going around and customizing. Not to mention also teams within ministries, so the IT teams, the planning teams, all the HR teams that were developing their own software. And now I think we're kind of at this tipping point where there seems to we try at least to find this equilibrium, between the heavily customized and the heavy off-the-shelf pre-packaged. And I think that now if you allow me to speak in these terms, the market is shrinking a bit, and the equilibrium is getting closer to that balance, I think. And so there is value of developing our own software, but that might lead to the multiplication of different packages that exist, and that might actually create data access challenges. Whereas other solutions that are a bit off the shelf, but that are heavily customizable, free open source. I mean, there's a high dimension of open source, customizable with community of practices. So in that sense, I think that many ministries are kind of finding their balance nowadays. And this brings me to the topic of decentralization. For many decades, governments have tried, not all, but many have tried to change the way that the different delivery activities were centralized and decentralize them to different administrative areas, but also not only delegating the management, but also delegating the operations, delegating the reporting, and delegating them the decision making and identifying the actual needs for the school system. Looking at the chat, if there is any question, maybe we can keep them for after the session. And then that from going back to headquarters at UNESCO and IIP, looking at this whole changing landscape, we thought, well, we actually might need, another presentation, for an actual EMIS diagnostic tool that would build on the past ones, the SABER or the DCAF, the EdDCAF, all these diagnostic tools that were created in the past. And that diagnostic tool will be both analytical and operational, identifying clear areas of improvement with concrete actions to take. Could be comparative, would allow a country or a state, a province, a zone to compare itself through time within the country, and even, why not, between countries, and also by subject matter, subsector, orientation, TVET, general, or tertiary or pre-primary, whatever. That tool should also be descriptive, so having a clear understanding and deep understanding of the context and the operations of of each domain, and of course collaborative, building on experience not only within a ministry but across the globe with experts, with practitioners. And so these reflections led to the creation of what we call an EMIS progress assessment tool, so the PAT, actually. We call it PAT. And that tool actually is a package that allows ministry officials, supported or not by us at UNESCO, to actually examine in a lot of detail for, let's say, different areas of work: the governance, the management, the technical architecture, and the data and information production processes. These 4 areas, we see them as a continuum, and these are areas that have been sometimes over the years, we focus a lot on the technical aspect, the technology, but a bit less on management, unless we're kind of caught by a specific event or request. And so these dimensions allow us to really address in detail the system itself. And within these dimensions, we have different progress level, as we call them. Well, we need to find a score, a ranking system to try to evaluate where our strengths and weaknesses. So that's what we do in this area. So this is a very colorful visualization of the path. It is multi-layered, as I said, so 4 dimensions that are broken down in sub-dimensions. And as you see, we can go in some details for governance. That is an area that is crucial when we work with data. So there's looking at the political and legal and strategic frameworks, multi-sectoral collaboration, which leads to interoperability, and the financial resources to make sure it's sustainable and that it covers not only a specific budget cycle, but sees through time. And this is just an example to show how we break down the dimensions. And for each of these dimensions, there's a series of questions to evaluate where we are sitting in that specific area. So in total, we have more than 140 items to look into, to grade. Of course, national teams do this, either alone or with support. And then we can actually identify for each of these dimensions the progress level. So that's when we lead this assessment. We visualize the results this way, and so that allows us to look at where we're standing. So level 1, for example, would be the initial progress level. Level 2, emergent, established, optimized, and transformative. And so for each of these sub-dimensions, you would have an idea where the system is. Of course, these scores are useful, but for us, the tool really aims at identifying these strategic improvement areas. And this is where it's perhaps kind of also a added value of this tool, is that it's really focused on action. It's not to sit on a table on a shelf. It's really to actually have recommendations that can be actionable. There's a light version that produces an automatized fact sheet so that you can identify your focus areas and have some ideas for action. But let's say the most robust analysis is the deepest analysis that will really look at how to bring every sub-dimensions to a kind of standard minimum level, which is level 3 for us. And then identifying with the government, of course, the ministry, areas for transformation, and then creating that roadmap for transformation. So is there a presidential memo, for example, that is focusing on one specific area where we could transform the education system in one of these features? Is there another requirement policy window that we can use to focus on transforming another sector? This is where the roadmap would be useful. And so brushing up quickly that for each of these items that have been examined, there's related documentation so that we're not just scoring out of the blue. We're really looking at all the evidence, all the data available in the country, working in a working session with national teams so that we can document as we go. And this is the analytical report. So it's a bit more detailed. Actually, it's a lot more detailed than the fact sheet. And it really kind of can lead to a costed plan for action. So this is really powerful for all of us that try to improve the delivery of education, to have an actual status, of the situation data-wise, where we're standing, how can we go ahead, how much could it cost, what would be the calendar. And that's the way that we think that for now we need to take a bit of time to take stock and see how we want to go ahead with our data systems. Perfectly on time. Stop here and put your questions afterwards. Thank you. Oops.
Sorry.
Just
Sorry.
illustrate.
What you shouldn't do. Wonderful. So, oh,
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Pramil Lenege from the Ministry of Health, Sri Lanka. So if you're wondering why a person from Ministry of Health is presenting in this education track, you'll get the answer in the presentation. So I'll be presenting what we did using DHIS2 to manage information in the school meal program. So this is it's in two parts. So I'll be presenting myself. I'll be presenting the introductions and the data flows and up to development part, how we develop the system. And my colleague from Ministry of Education will present how we did the training and implemented and how the monitoring happened in the system. Right. So it all began when the government decided to give a free meal to the students. Basically, it was targeted from 1 to 5 grade children, all the 1 to 5 children in schools, because they had a lot of nutritional problems. But it was also extended to grade 6 to 13 in certain schools where finance was available, and also their nutritional status was not really good. So, and also it was extended to the special education units and some religious schools. So the funding came from Government of Sri Lanka and UN agencies and other donors. And apart from these financial allocations, some donors gave goods, some donors gave meals per se. So there was a need to monitor all this implementation of the program and also the financial progress of this program. So, and the system also needed to be interoperable with other information systems like health and also other education information systems. For example, health, we collect the school medical inspection data where we collect the nutritional status of the children. So that has to be integrated to monitor the impact. And also educational systems also had this attendance and exam performances and those kinds of information, which also needs to be integrated. So the need for interoperability was there. And also they needed a quick system which can be implemented rapidly and also can be scaled up easily. So they have decided to use DHIS2, and the project was driven by the Presidential Secretariat and coordinated with a lot of stakeholders, including the Prime Minister's office and a lot of national departments like planning, national budget, treasury and finance, and also Ministry of Education was the main stakeholder. And Ministry of Health actually came in two parts. One is their technical expertise in health as a mission. They have all the nutrition data and they have the school medical inspection data and they monitor this progress. So technical expertise on health of school children was one of the contributions from the Ministry of Health. And the other aspect is Ministry of Health has developed and implemented a lot of systems using DHIS2 in Sri Lanka. Very successful implementations, and they have the capacity and they have a lot of people working in these systems. So they wanted to use this expertise to develop and support this system for the Ministry of Education. So that's why I'm here, right? And then other partners like UN agencies, World Food Program, UNICEF, and also Sri Lanka also gave the technical expertise. But initially we conducted a lot of stakeholder meetings to identify the scope because it was a very diverse scope, right? The school meals, then finance, monitoring, a lot of needs were there. So we conducted stakeholder meetings, and then circulars and guidelines were issued in all three languages. We use Sinhala, Tamil, and English in Sri Lanka. So these are snaps from the stakeholder meetings. you can see people, you won't be able to identify, but there are people from World Food Program, then Health Ministry, Education, and a lot of stakeholders are there. So here we finalized the scope for the system, and then the system was developed to facilitate this management of information for monitoring of the school meal program. So we have designed it in three phases. So initially a rapid deployment for aggregate data system management was initiated to generate the indicators, especially for managing the program management and also the financial progress monitoring. And then a second phase, which will be like to monitor the impact using health data. For example, has there been an improvement of the BMI of the children who got this free meals? Are the nutritional disorders have they improved? So likewise, to monitor the impact, we need a separate tool. So and also using supervisions and other survey methods. So that will come in the second phase. And third phase, the plan is to go for individual level data for school children and also the suppliers who provide meals and this management of vouchers for the finance. So that will be phase 3. So this is the basic data flow starting from the schools. So where the schools will be the place to capture data and also analyze and view. So they will provide information about the schools and also about the meals. And then above the schools, there is a level called zones in Sri Lanka, so that they will also give some information, especially financial indicators, and also use this data for monitoring. And above that, it will be aggregate data monitoring. And if you think of the finance information, so funds will come from the government of Sri Lanka. And also there are other parties, as I mentioned, the UNs, NGOs, they will contribute with money or with the goods. And some donors will give meals, specific meals to the schools. And finally, the supplier will provide vouchers and it has to be also captured into the system. So it was very complicated, but we broke it down into 3 phases. And at the first phase, we developed this aggregate system. We developed the data sets for school profile, meal information, and also financial data. And custom forms are needed because we had to put all 3 languages in one form, and there was skip logics which had to be included using JavaScript. So we had to use custom forms, and then this included program management and financial indicators, and then we developed the dashboards and all the analytics. And this was tested in the Ministry of Education servers. So they have a separate instance where they have implemented nationally to monitor other parameters in education. So it was then migrated to the national IMS hosted in the Education Ministry. So these are the components. We have 5 forms here in the system. One is the annual form for schools where they provide information like the type of school, then the registration for that year. So those kinds of information, and monthly they will provide information on the meals given. And then all the other financial indicators, we have separate forms. And these are the forms which we have developed. So in all 3 languages, so this is a screenshot of the annual form where they entered the type of school and other parameters and also the registered number of students and how many were eligible. And then you can see the grading of some areas using this logic. And then each month they have to submit this report related to meals provided and also the financial allocations and financial indicators. So from here, I invite Dakshina to present about how we implemented this system.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dakshina from the Ministry of Education.
and I'm dealing with data management and information system development unit of the Ministry of Education. I'm glad to say that because of DHIS2, the major two ministries in Sri Lanka, Health Ministry and Ministry of Education, started working in collaboration with to make educated, healthy child. So that I would like to focus your attention on this ensures the SDG4 goal, like which indicates proportion of school attending children receiving school meals. And this is how the orientation and training goes on after development of the system. In Sri Lanka, there are 9 provinces as indicated in the map. And these 9 provinces in the system of education, there are 100 education zones, which comes under 9 provinces. And there are 312 divisions, which works under zones. And the number of schools which benefited from school meal program is 8,796. That comes under school divisions, education divisions. So we developed the guidelines in all 3 media, Sinhala, Tamil and English, for the betterment of all the races in Sri Lanka. And we started giving the training in the cascade method, like we nationally train the provinces and zones, because the divisions and schools are in large number, we couldn't train them nationally. And the provinces and zones were trained nationally, like in taking 1 lab for 70 people, which can occupy 70 people. And the focal points who enters the data at provincial and zonal level were taken to these labs and were trained. And the numbers in beneficiaries and budgets are as this number of schools listed under school meal program is 8,796. That covers 97.1% of the total number of schools in Sri Lanka. And all the primary schools were given this meal, and that is 3,860. And apart from that, there are some schools which has students less than 100. So they also were taken under this category. And there are some other institutions like special education centers, as well as someone called Pirivenas, where Buddhist monks are learned. They also were given the school meal program. So this system was implemented in all these places, and they were trained to enter the data. And the number of students is 1.5 million, covering 37% of the total student population, and the budget allocation for this was 72 million USD. So to this system, all these data were entered and running smoothly. And there are some indicators monitored this program management. For instance, percentage of schools with functional school SHP committee, like it is out of from eligible schools, what percentage of schools with functional SHP committee is monitored. And then percentage of schools which a teacher as a focal point from the eligible schools, how many schools under this category, like we monitored, and these are some of the parameters. And this is one of the example how we monitored, like we entered data, total number of schools attendees were taken, like as male, female, and the total number of students who received the meals also were taken, because there can be some students who reject the meal, but that is taken and the reasons were taken, and that is how the parameters were monitored. And we have a lot of future expectations to be developed under this system. We can integrate data from the health information systems to this school meal program system. And then integration of data from the Department of Examination of the students' performance can be incorporated with this. And from the Ministry of Education, school attendance, for instance, school attendance data can be integrated with this. As well as we hope to do an impact survey using this data, how the school meal program is useful to improve the attendance of the students, nutritional level of the students, and etc. And further, we are hoping to develop this to track the individual students' data. And then the challenges that we faced is, one thing is the HR turnover. Like, we train people within 2 or 3 months. Sometimes these trained people transfer to another ministry, another institution. So we have to once again, like, KT sessions were not done once one person leaves. So some certain things like that. Sometimes the KT sessions were done, sometimes it's not. And some leave the country for another occupations like. So that was a challenge. And ICT infrastructure, like connectivity and devices, we saw that was a challenge. But we saw that some of the teachers using mobile data from their phone, from their own money, they enter data to the systems that we develop without any benefit for them, without any incentive. They go to the places where the receptions is there, and they enter data using their mobile data. And another challenge is interoperability with other systems, like the examination department system, as well as MI systems, as well as the Ministry of Health system. We have to have data shared using APIs and others. It was also a challenge. We are hoping to recover all these challenges and develop it further to promote healthy, educated children. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Togo a little bit. I was supposed to present this with Mr. Domito, but unfortunately he was not around. That's why you have Jerry and Domito here. So we're going to talk about school observation. A school observation tool that we actually implemented in Togo. So basically, I mean, when it comes to quality of teaching, there is, I mean, we think about the results, but we think about how teachers also train. And what we needed to have is actually do what we call a pedagogical monitoring. So we need to know if teachers are actually teaching in the right manner. So they usually come to schools to check if things are done correctly, if they have the necessary infrastructure and so on and so forth. So basically what happened is before 2021, they were actually collecting that on paper. So it was a bit typical to use that for analysis, because then you have to actually aggregate, and you also need to analyze trends. But on paper, it's kind of difficult to do. And so they wanted something, a new digital solution, or a solution that could help them monitor this in real time, and that was scalable. So that's the reason why we opted for DHIS2. So why DHIS2? First of all, it's because it's an open source. And then also it's because of its flexibility, because you can configure, you can build an app on top of it based on the needs of the countries. Then of course, it's easier to actually have dashboards for monitoring. And of course, DHIS2 was already used in Togo. So we are using it to collect data for annual census, okay, human resource data, and then also exam data. So, I mean, it was kind of adding that piece to it, because with that piece, we can actually understand more the exam data results. We can understand more things related to human resource, and also related to annual census, which is the usual statistics. So what the plan was to have use the same tool for various purposes. The first one was at the decentralized level. Okay, so we can actually easily plan school visit efficiently. We can capture the observation online and offline, because in some areas you don't have internet connectivity. So this is having this possibility of actually capturing the data online and offline. We needed to actually, we have what we call school inspectors. Those are the ones that are supposed to monitor the teachers, and they actually needed to actually monitor everybody, engage, have a big coverage. But with this system, we were able to have it. And then of course, there's this thing of having real-time data for themselves for analysis. So, but at the central level, then we wanted to have the possibility to have aggregate data for analysis, okay? Then also have the possibility to identify regions where having problems and see how to support them, and also plan and target teacher training and mentoring, because then we know where you have problems. And of course, support evidence-based policy and formulation. So what we actually did was to start with all the stakeholders. So we have what we call CNDPTs, okay? And that is the team that was heading the whole project and the whole implementation, and we're actually supporting. So with that, we actually had a lot of workshops involving people from the central level, involving school inspectors, involving teachers, to actually develop a tool that could be actually usable. And then, of course, during those processes, we actually build a lot of capacity so that the central team can actually maintain the system, and also have, we also have a lot of interaction with key stakeholders on this. So results, we're able to roll it out nationwide. So we have 82 inspections. So they are currently using DHIS2 to actually capture the data using Android. And of course, they are using the offline functionality, because I mean, in some remote areas, you don't have internet. So what happens is that they actually collect the data, and then they come to school inspections as a building, and then there's internet there, so they can synchronize. And then of course, we have a decision-making dashboards. So we have a web and mobile dashboard. So mobile is mainly for the ones that are actually monitoring the teachers, because then they don't need to be online. They can actually analyze the data using the mobile. And of course, they have the web as well, if you have internet. But of course, at the central level, they are using the web mainly. And then of course, we actually were able to make sure that everybody contributed to the development of the system. Meaning we even went to the field and actually discussed with the teachers and school inspectors to see what were the problems with entering the data using the system, because it's a continuous work in progress. What we've been doing is we usually go there. I mean, they'll be entering the data, but we went on the field, we asked them, are you having challenges here? They said, yes, we need to make this easier. So we actually even changed the app along the line, or sorry, the configuration along the line to make it easier for them. And of course, we're using WhatsApp, okay? So basically what we have is that we have a WhatsApp group whereby we have this possibility of engaging with all the school inspectors. And so if they have a challenge, they send a screenshot, they send us a message, we reply, and have a technical team that has been responding to all the challenges they've been having. And also we use that to actually show them some of if for instance, people are not entering the data, or some are performing pretty well, we actually send them, for instance, dashboards so that they see. And for instance, when they have errors, there are some errors, we also use that to communicate with them. So you've been using that WhatsApp greatly. So those are some of the screenshots. Sorry, it's in French. So what we have here is what we have the classroom observation tool, whereby they have the various sections where they need to fill, and then it's actually kind of a scaling. I mean, they have to actually from 0 to 4. 4 is the highest grade. Okay, so all those sections have like the grades that you need to add. And then based on that, you have how do you call it, analytics on your far right. So with that, they were able to have those local analytics at their level to actually see how, first of all, classrooms are performing, teachers are performing, and also to monitor themselves and see, because they actually need to know the percentage of teachers they've actually observed. So with that, they can keep track and see if they are performing pretty well and so on and so forth. So these are just some snapshots of some of the how do you call it, the outputs that of visualization. Then this is what we have at the central level. Mainly, this is one of the visualization they use to monitor, to keep track and see how many teachers have been, how many classroom observation have been conducted, how many teachers have been monitored, I would say. And then for each, how they call inspection. Inspection is what we call IESG, for instance. So we actually have this, and we actually using it to monitor and see. So if, for instance, people are not entering the data, we have a data quality dashboard as well to check all those things. I didn't want to bring all those dashboards, but we have several dashboards. I mean, a lot of dashboards that we use for monitoring and also analyzing. For instance, we can know how many, if you have, how many math teachers you have in a region, for instance, and this can be used to see how we can plan for staff enrollment and so on and so forth. So outcome, I would say we actually have improved classroom in teaching, because nowadays we have this possibility to link the performance of the teacher with because we already have the human resource data, individual human resource data. So it has been linked to the observation. So we can know if the teacher has improved or hasn't improved at all. So this actually is quite, it's making a lot of difference. And of course, now we have all the data to make decisions at the higher level for planning, meaning bringing staff to a specific region, bringing teachers for, for instance, maths or physics. If there's no how do you call teachers there. Then of course, a strong organizational capacity at all levels, because then we now have all the data at hand. Challenges. Okay. So basically, we had a lot of resistance because we were trying to change from paper to digital. And then some were not that used to. I mean, they were kind of reluctant to use the paper, but the digital solution. But along the line, we're able to support them a lot to actually make sure that they actually do that transition. And of course, the digital literacy was varying from one point to another. And then, of course, there was a need to have continuous support and training to bring them on board. And of course, we had limited infrastructure whereby some were having tablets that were not working at a certain point of time, because the country has decided to actually send tablets to all school inspectors. But unfortunately, some of the tablets were not working. So people were not having the possibility to enter the data. So some decided to use their own devices to actually add the data into the system. So lesson learned, I think it's evolving, bringing all the stakeholders together and building the system together is really important, because then everybody owns the system and they want to bring it forward, because then everybody feels like they're part of the team. Then of course, offline was key here, because we needed to have a system that can operate without having internet connectivity. So they can go to the classroom, they don't need internet, they can enter the data, and they can also analyze the data offline. And of course, with this dashboard, then there's a lot of transparency now, because then you have the data at the central level, and you also have the data here. So we actually seen how people are performing here and there. Key takeaways. What I can say is that it of course enhanced monitoring and data-driven decision making. Of course, with the dashboards, we are promoting transparency. We think that this model is scalable, because it's actually something that we have in a lot of countries. And so using this, building a school observation tool in DHIS2 is possible. And it actually brought a lot of departments together, because we have the Department of Planning, the Department of Examination, and the Department of School Inspection. They were all together. So you unified the departments. And for instance, they are not having the same master school list. So we had to bring everything together. And with this, they actually understood that they needed to actually harmonize things. And we were able to do that. That's something we need to talk about. And of course, the fact that we have offline and then real-time analytics, which is, it actually makes sure that data is accessible to a lot of people. With that, I'll have to say thank you very much.
Wonderful. So just looking around the room, because we have run out of time. So just looking around the room, is there anyone who has a question in the room? We've got a couple of questions online the KICS email community.
Okay, thank you. My question is for DHIS2 implementers, Nigeria and Yogo, and my second question is for UNICEF.
Same.
Okay. For DHIS2 implementer, what strategy do you use to train the new teacher? I think you must develop a module for new teacher in the school. C'est ça. Voilà. À l'école de formation des enseignants.
Oui,
Voilà.
oui.
Okay. And the second, là, je vais parler en français, si vous permettez.
Avec plaisir. I will
Euh,
translate after it.
En fait, j'ai beaucoup apprécié le cadre d'évaluation que vous avez présenté. Et je suis un peu le même modèle au niveau de l'enseignement supérieur. Voilà, il y a un modèle d'évaluation de tout ce qui est formation en ligne, formation à distance. Depuis un certain temps, ce modèle n'est plus accessible. Donc, c'était pour voir est-ce que c'est un modèle disponible pour tous ceux qui voudraient utiliser pour faire des évaluations. Merci.
Jerry, it was a question to Jerry? Oh, yeah. First.
I think it was both.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Oh,
both-
sorry.
Yeah, you know, you can start.
Yeah, I think what we did for our teacher training, and because we are moving more onto aggregates, we have the full tools that have been developed, and the teachers have been trained to support that deep level of data capture at the school level. So if there are no school census form that we are using for now, and that's what the data is being collected. So there is a module already on that we've used from the DHIS. We have a module that we train people at that level. The ones at the higher level is additional modules to deal with why the state level and the local government people are the ones that they're using to train the teachers. Yeah.
Okay, I'm tempted to speak in French, but I'll speak in English. Okay, so I mean, for us, we didn't actually train teachers. We didn't go up to the teacher level. We stay as school inspection inspector. Because, I mean, first of all, data is not collected using another application called strategy. And we're actually building the probability. And the inspectors are the ones actually entering data for school observation. So what we did, we actually built capacity for school inspectors, but not the teachers. And then from there, we actually had a kind of a cascade training because, of course, we train the central level, then they actually train the lower level and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's the way it was done.
Yes, the question was about if it's possible to use the same evaluation framework, like assessment framework, to tertiary education. So for
University.
yeah. So the framework itself is applicable to any subsector. All the items can be interpreted whether for primary, secondary, tertiary, doesn't matter. There might be some specificities for tertiary regarding the legislative framework. I will have to double check. But for the institutional framework, sometimes the legislation for tertiary education is a bit different than the legislation like from the Education Act or something. So I would have to cross check, but nonetheless, the framework is really conceived to be applicable to anything. It's really about the data system rather than the actual, programs or streams or classification. Right. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great, and let me check, my mic is on? No? Yeah. And to you again, online on the KICS community, we've received a question saying thank you for your presentation and asking what does it take to use this tool? Is there an online orientation on using the tool, especially on the metrics used for all the information required? Is it available in fact sheets, analytical reports, etc.?
So thank you, colleagues. Speaking to the camera now. Yeah, so indeed, depending on the format the ministry is choosing to use, so whether using by themselves or through our collaboration, there is an orientation session that we can organize online for everyone. There is guidelines to use the tool and to interpret the results and so forth. And if you decide also to use it with UNESCO, then there's a series of working sessions online and or face-to-face with the national team. So in any case, there will be a national team. In any case, there will be an inception meeting. And then depending on the configuration, we can organize. This allows me to clarify also, thank you, that the reports that I mentioned, the fact sheets and the reports are, when they're finished and validated, they are publicly available. And so I forgot to mention that we're setting this global EMIS observatory within UNESCO. So having this methodology, all the benchmarking that either headquarters or institutes are doing, these reports, and so all the resources and the community of practice also are through that observatory. Thank you.
It's just such a good reminder that when we're working together, there is so much available already on what gaps exist, where we should be focusing. We have the African Union, EMIS norms and standards, peer reviews as well. So we're not operating in a vacuum. There's so much that exists already, and we must go where the data is telling us as well. So Jerry, you received comments as well from the community online. The person mentioned that you have developed crucial points for improvement. Oh, sorry, my apologies. You have mentioned crucial points for improvement. The problem arises when you have the data, however, there are not specific actions connecting them. Your speech is insightful, really, thank you. So that's for you. Anyone else in the room? Any final comment? We have Mr. Edwin Batur from African Union IPED. I'm just going to walk up.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Nima Tualinga from the African Union. I would like to commend all of the presenters, mainly our colleagues from UNESCO. I think for all the African Union, we use to learn what we call EU norm and standard and EMIS, and focus more on the CESA indicators. And what we are trying now to do is just to combine the two frames, our own strategy, CESA indicators, and also SDG 4. And we are working currently with UIS in order to have the same mechanism that allow countries or member states from the continent to work on the same frame, SDG 4 and CESA indicators. So for us, it's very important to continue to harmonize what you presented, to harmonize with our EU norm and standards. So we plan to be in Dakar to work with the regional office of UIS, and I would like to use the opportunity also to see how we can continue to work with your team so that we can harmonize exactly what we are doing for Africa, and making sure that we can avoid the burden on our member state. That's very important for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues. And I think because of time, we want to make sure that you get some lunch. I mean, some coffee. Lunch has been had. There was another question to Mr. Luca. You answered a part of it, Luca, but I wonder if you could just give us a final.
The final one.
This is for the KICS EMAP community. Okay.
So someone was asking about the indicators within the project. Yes, there are quite a number of them. We are looking at the teachers, the enrollment. We're looking at children that have been enrolled in the system with birth certificate, because we're trying to link what is coming from the ECVR into the education system, just to ensure that those things are there. And there was also another question on sustainability. looking at it. Yes, there's been some bit of funding from the federal level because we're not going to allow only the partners to do the contribution. The government is also going to make some contribution at the federal level. And then the other sustainability move is for the capacity building that has been set up to run through the entire cadre from the national, state, and the local government, and then up to school level. And there is also the thinking around the buy-in from states trying to also invest in the education system. So these three layers of sustainability, we are hoping that we inform the system to run properly. Thank you.
Thanks, Luca. And just thank you again to all our speakers. If you could give a little round of applause. Very much. Thank you to everyone online for joining us. And just a reminder, 3 o'clock today at Auditorium 2, we'll hear from Education Above All Foundation and from other Khan Foundations. So I hope you will join us to hear those education use cases as well. And then on Thursday, if you want to know more about what we're trying to do in the individual learner EMIS space, Alfredo Muchanga is available at the Expert Lounge on Thursday at 5. 4. Come at 4. That's a good idea. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you again to everyone who joined. Thank you.